On the island of Sicily, just a few miles from Mount Etna, is a small town called Nicolosi. The land here is rich and fertile, as Mount Etna is in an almost constant state of eruption. Most of the villagers make their living working in vineyards and orchards.
We were farmers. Almost everybody in Sicily was farmers. And my grandparents had a piece of land. We had orchards, we had grapes, we had olives, we had oranges, peaches, but the most important thing for me was ficadindias. Ficadindias would be the cactus plant, or the prickly pears, as they're called here in the States, and that was really my favorite. My parents' marriage was arranged. My father was 29 years old, my mother was 16 years old. And so their parents thought that this would be a good thing to do. My mother, I remember, 16 years old, had no idea about marriage, didn't want to get married.
Giuseppe Bruno and Barbara Chiseri were married in 1946. Their first child, Salvatore Giuseppe, was born in 1948. A second son, Alfio, was born 2 years later.
We lived with my father's parents. We lived in an unheated house, and it was right by the church, and it was right by the center of the city.
Joe's father would leave the town of Nicolosi on Mondays to work on the farm and would not return home until Saturday. During the week, he would live in a small one-room cottage on the farm.
I would often accompany my father to go to the farm when I was 5, 6 years old. It was great fun. I rode the donkey. It was hard for me to sort of climb the hills because Sicily was very mountainous.
Yeah, and you go with his daddy. It's crazy for his daddy job. Everywhere you go, he wants to go.
Life on a farm was difficult, and Joe's dad wanted more for his children.
My husband said, I like to go to America, and I want my kids to do the life I'm doing. Better future for them.
In November 1956, the Bruno family left Italy and departed from Naples on the SS Cristoforo Colombo.
Joe was 8 years old, Alfie was 5. So we came here. It was not easy to live with my parents. I don't want to live with my parents. It wasn't easy anyway.
We settled in Washington, D.C. because my aunt and uncle lived there, and they sponsored us. We couldn't speak English either, so we had a tough time at school for the first year.
I flunked 3rd grade. I'm proud to say I was probably one of the first English as a second language student in Washington, D.C. Next year I went to Blessed Sacrament, which was a Catholic school nearby. And I do remember those days, we still ate traditional Italian, we still do today. And I think that I was always nervous about the eggplant sandwiches that sort of smelled different than salami, that all the other kids had the peanut butter and jellies, and we were sort of different. And the aroma of the food was different. But, you know, shortly thereafter, we swapped, and I think the kids, I remember, wanted sort of my sandwiches.
Being that he was the oldest, he had to help provide for the family.
I think my dad, in a way, looked at my brother as maybe, I don't want to say a father figure, but definitely more of a friend, someone he could confide in, someone could help him.
Joe pretty much paid for his way through school from the moment his feet touched U.S. soil.
He was banging on people's door, asking them if he could rake their lawns, asking them if he could shovel their walks. He probably started serving papers before he could speak English as well.
They lived with us in our house for 6 months or so, and then my father and my uncle would go out and looking for houses.
We found a little house, and it was really a little house. It was in Chevy Chase. We bought it for $13,000, I remember that. And he kept adding on to it to sort of accommodate 4 kids. And he lived there all his life. My mother still lives there.
Tomato sauce. That's all I remember, because they had a garden. Their whole yard was taken up by a garden, and they had tomatoes and vegetables. And all I just remembered, his mother was always in the kitchen, this aroma of it was always hot, because the pots were always boiling, and they canned tomatoes.
Joe attended Blessed Sacrament through 8th grade and then went on to St. John's High School. He graduated from the University of Maryland in 1971 with a degree in finance. After college, Joe joined the accounting firm of Pete Marwick Mitchell and passed the CPA exam in 1972.
Of course, my father wanted me to be a doctor. I'd come to America, you have to be a doctor. I think all foreigners want their kids to be doctors.
I've known Joe since 1973. When I joined Pete Marwick, if you mentioned, Pete Marwick, Washington, D.C., the first thing you thought about was S. Joseph Bruno. He was the epicenter of our office, from the professional side and the social side. He was a highly charged workaholic.
I spent 15 years at Pete Marwick, and I spent 10 of them in Washington, 2 in New York, and 3 in Rome, Italy, which is the best part of my career. How can you not go back to your country and go back as a partner in a big accounting firm? And it was fabulous. I visited often my family down in Sicily. And again, they really didn't understand what I did, but they knew I worked for a big firm, and they loved to have me back home. It was like I never left. I came back from Italy, still at Pete Marwick. I had a choice to stay. They asked me to stay in Rome and make a career out of Rome, but my parents and brothers and sisters were here now, and so I opted to come back. And I spent another 3 years working in Washington, until one of my clients made me an offer I couldn't refuse. One day, he had asked me if I'd join his company. I really never wanted to leave this firm. I was Pete Marwick. This was a little farm boy comes in as a partner in a big 8 firm. This is the blue blood as you get. I crossed a lot of barriers. I didn't really want to leave. But Tom worked on me, and the job came with a car.
Joe is crazy about cars. Fast cars, Italian cars, Ferraris, and Formula One racing. A passion his daughters have inherited.
And I had some money, so I built a house. Thought that's all I needed to do. I spent about a year building a house. But in that 1 year that I was building the house, I was also looking for a wife, and always looking for an Italian girl. And my friends at Pete Marwick had met this young lady that was Italian.
Cynthia Marini was to change Joe's life forever. And their daughters, Cinzia and Francesca, have become the great loves of their lives.
Joe's a very passionate individual. He's passionate about his Italian-American heritage. He's very passionate about his family and very passionate about his friends. And Joe's made tremendous contributions to his friends and to the community over a business career that has spanned 40 years.
I can't think of anybody who's done more for children's education in this city and to continue to help throughout his lifetime, really, than Joe Bruno.
This country's got a problem in higher education, but it's got an enormous problem in K through 12. So I got involved. I asked him if he would help with building hope, and not only did he help, he just took it away and went off with it.
Building Hope supports high-quality public charter schools by providing technical and financial assistance for educational facilities. It's part of a charter school movement that now includes over 1.5 million children nationwide and over 38% of all District of Columbia public school students.
His growing up, coming from Italy, working, being grateful every day, has led him to where he is today.
He brings a real appreciation of life. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he came to this country young, experienced the opportunities, did very good things, was very successful. I think that's what he wishes for all the kids. I think Joe sees in those kids something of his own life and just wants them to be successful.
You know, it's amazing when I think back to when I first met him, and it was under very difficult circumstances. His daughter, Cinzia, had just been diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. So I know Joe Bruno in a very different way. I know him first of all as a father, the man who spent day and night in the hospital, whose wife never left the hospital for a single day in those 6 months, who had to take care of another daughter at home and make sure that her needs were taken care of while Chinzia was being taken care of. Once Chinzia finished her treatment, I remember him telling me that his focus had changed. And it's ironic because for years he'd raised money for the Leukemia Lymphoma Foundation and the society. And he felt that there was a higher calling for him and that he genuinely wanted now to help children who were suffering from cancer. You know, that is the part of Joe Bruno that I appreciate and love the most.
Joe, I'm so proud of you that you're being honored as Italian American Man of the Year. You certainly deserve it. For the 20 years we've been married, you've been Husband of the Year. And for our daughters, Francesca and Cinzia, I know you've been Father of the Year.
We love you so much, Papa. We're really proud of you. Congratulations, Papa.
Vorrei dire insieme con tutti quanti che siamo tutti grati al Signore per questa opportunità di dire a lei, Giuseppe, Joe, che siamo veramente felici di essere qui con lei in questo momento e di dire al nostro Signore che lei ha fatto un bel lavoro e noi siamo tutti orgogliosi. Speriamo bene che il Signore continui a benedirla.